Hello, welcome to the TechHub.training challenge solution video for SQL Skyline Subquery Sweepstakes. Today you'll be taking the role of a data analyst hired by the CFO of Skyline LLC, who is going to answer some of his questions. He's giving you a list. He's very charismatic. Maybe he's a little unclear in what he wants, but you have the requests, you know SQL, and you're going to be able to start solving and answering his questions using SQL in Microsoft Access. So first, go ahead and open up this the intro data set. You can see here we've got our 4 tables here. Go to the database tools and look at the relationships. We can see how they are organized. We can see there's a product table, a customer table, an orders table, and then a table combining these two, because an order could have multiple products, or a product can also be in multiple orders. And so you can see, if you ever want to see the attributes of each table, you can double click here and see some of these attributes. For now, let's just go ahead and jump into solving question 1. So to do this, you're going to hit create, query design, and then hit the SQL at the bottom, and then we can jump in. So in this case, the CFO is concerned about some underperforming products, and he wants to be able to find the 5 most underwhelming products in terms of total numbers sold. So this is a very classic SQL query that you might need to do in the real world. So there's multiple ways that you can approach this. So let me see here. Anytime you're going to be limiting results in Access, you need to use the top statement. And so we're going to say select top 5. And now remember, he wants the top 5 most underwhelming products in terms of quantity sold. So the ones that have been sold the least, these are the ones that we are going to want to be at the top. So I'll come back to that when we do the order by. So we know where he wants the product names, and then we want to get the quantity sold. So we're just going to sum the quantity table, and then we want to call that total sold. And then we got to think about what tables we're going to use. So we know we're going to for sure use the product table. And then I'm going to say as P because this is how we've aliased it up here. And then we're going to join it to the order detail table. Again, going back to our relationships, this is how you can see what we're joining here. In this case, we're joining product to the order detail table. These are our columns. And then we want to alias that for OD, and then we want to define the product ID column as the common thing here. And then we are going to group by our non-aggregated column, and we are going to finally order by our quantity. Now, the question is, do we want to do ascending or descending? If we wanted the most underperforming, then we need to order it by ascending, like this. Or you can just leave it off because that's what Access in SQL does by default. So you can go ahead and go to Query Design and click Run. We can see our top 5 product names in terms of the ones that we've sold the least of. So a virtual reality headset, darn, LED sky desk lamp, portable Bluetooth turntable. So because of this, the CFO has another question because he's also hyper concerned about the Skyline original products with the word sky in the name. So he wants another report showing which of the underwhelming products are Skyline originals. So whenever you're seeing a query that's asking which of a certain set of products are Skyline originals, we know that we can pull from this table alone because he's only wanting to know which of these specific products are Skyline originals. Let's go ahead and create another query. So we'll go to Query Design, SQL. So we know we're going to want to use this table because we want to know which products from here are originals. So what we can do is we can actually copy this entire thing, and then we can come into our SQL here, and we can just put it in the from statement. So you can see how I've copied that here, remove the semicolon. Anytime you're going to use a subquery in the from, you need to do an alias for it. I like Bob myself, but you can name it whatever you want. And so now we know this is where we're going to pull from. We are pulling from this table here. So what does he want? He just wants to report showing which of these products are Skyline originals. So to be able to do this, it's actually going to be simpler than you think. So if he just wants to know which ones are Skyline originals, what we can do is we can do a select star. So we want all the columns, and then all we need to do is add a filter. So we just need to add a where statement. And so we got to think, how do we identify which ones are Skyline originals? And all you have to do is to say where product name, like, and then you do sky, something like this. So it depends on what SQL you are using. Because this is access, what this asterisk does is it says any number of preceding characters before this and any number of characters after it. So this is basically just saying any product name that has the word sky in it. And so then we can just run our query, and we can see we have the Sky Desk lamp and the Professional Sky microphone. So now the CFO has something he can do, and he can act on it. And so next, let's jump into query 2. You should save your queries when you do your work. For these purposes, I will go ahead and close them. He wants to know which customers are showing up as duplicates. Basically, he's concerned his system isn't recording customers correctly because there should only be one customer in each report. So he wants a report showing all customers that are duplicated in the system, and we only need to focus on the customer emails. So basically, we need to give him a list of emails that represent duplicated customers. So how do we do that? This part we actually don't need a subquery. So let's go ahead and close out of our relationships and create another query. All we need to do is group all of the emails together and count the number of instances we see in the customer table. And then we just need to filter on how many of those are more than one. So we know how to do this from beginner SQL, so I won't focus a ton of time on exactly how I'm crafting this here, but if you have any questions on why this query works, feel free to visit the SQL Learning Path or other resources to be able to understand. So now we have a list of emails that are showing up in the customer table more than once. And so next, the CFO, this is a list of emails, and that's great, except that he wants to know who these customers are. So he wants to get their first and last names along with that list of emails. So this is going to require another subquery, but this one is going to be a little bit different. This one we're going to be using it as a filter. Because what we want to do is we want to get all of the first and last names from the customer table, but only if their email is part of this duplicated email list. So let's go ahead and start working on that. So we're going to create a new query again. And let's start just working on the select statement. So if we open the customer table, we know we're going to want the first and last name combined. So how do we do that in Access? We do this. So we want first name, and then we use this ampersand symbol, and we're going to do a space, ampersand, last name. And then let's go ahead and call this cust full name. So what this will do is it'll take the first and last name, combine them together, and then you'll have just one customer full name. And then we'll go ahead and grab the email, their email as well. Now, because we're just wanting a distinct list of customers, we're worried about duplicates here. Let's go ahead and make the query distinct so that it only shows up once. So this will only give one combination of first and last name and email. So then we know we're going to want it from the customer table, so that doesn't change. And then we have to think how we want to filter it. Because if we run this right now, what it's going to do is it's just going to pull up a list of all of their first and last names. So, but we can see here, looking at Addison Gonzalez, there's a hotmail.com and an outlook.com. So we know these two are actually there's three here. So we know these three Addison Gonzalez's are all actually different people. And so we know that these aren't actually duplicates. So what we need to do is we need to filter it to where we're only keeping the emails that are here. So which customers have these emails, because we know these are the duplicates. So what we can do, we can go ahead and copy this because we have this as a list of emails. And then we can say, we need to go back to the query. we can say where the email is in this list. So this is what's neat about SQL is you can filter using this in statement. So now what it's going to do is it's going to look at the customer table and it's only going to include customers if their emails are in this specific list of customers here. So now what we can do is we can just run this because this query is complete and we have our report. So we can see, look at all these duplicates. So now we can give this to the CFO. All right, now let's jump into the last two queries and see what we need to answer for the CFO this time. So he's very upset about the 10% discounts, right? Way too generous. His company's lost tons of money. Yeah, we get it. So let's open the order detail and see what he's talking about. So we can see we have this discount table. So we can see, look at all these orders, their products. So you can see there's a 0 of 5% discount applied to some of these. Then we can see some like here, that's a 10% discount. So he wants to know exactly how much money we've lost because of the 10%. Like how much has Skyline lost because they've given this discount as opposed to not giving a discount at all. So this is a very nice question, very easy to answer in SQL. Well, not easy, it's an intermediate challenge, but this is a common question that you can use SQL to answer. So once again, I'm going to close out of these queries. Again, you'd want to save your work when you post your solution. And let's go ahead and create a new query and get started. So first, there's some ways to do this. Me personally, I like to start with the from statement just to be able to see exactly what tables I know that I'm going to need. So we know we're going to need the order detail. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I always just alias because I know I'm going to be using in the select. We know we're going to need the product table because if you look at the product table, that's going to show the price. So we need to know the prices to be able to get the magnitude of the discount. So if we can tie price to the order detail table, then we can get the product ID's price times the quantity to get the discount. So let's go back to our query over here. And let's finish our from statement. We know we're going to want to join on product ID once again. And then we're focusing on just that 10% discount, right? So our where statement, our filter, we want this discount to equal 10%. So you can see it's a decimal form here. So let's just do where od.discount equals 0.1. Now let's focus on our select. So now we got to think with our, think about math here. How do we get the total amount of money that we've lost? So all we need to do is we got to think, let's think of this here. So price times quantity, what does this get us for each order? So what it's going to do, this is like the total amount of money that customer spent. So see if they ordered 4 of product ID 31. If we were to go find what product ID 31 is, we could see it has a price of 20. So therefore 20 times 4 is 80. That's how much money they spent. So this is a good start. However, we want to find the amount that we lost. So what we need to do is we need to take this amount, let's group it in parentheses, and then we need to multiply it times the discount, because the discount is the total amount of money that they saved or that we lost. And then finally, because we're trying to get an aggregation here, a total discount here, what we need to do is we actually need to sum this entire thing. Because if you think about what's happening here, product ID 31 could have been ordered multiple times. We want to make sure we're getting every combination of product and quantity that lines up with this 10% here. So what we can do is just to do a little sum on the outside of this whole thing, like this, and then name that total discount. And there we go. Let's go ahead and run it. So we can see we've lost $1,378.50. So maybe that's a lot to the CFO. Personally, I'm not thinking that's a ton of money, but maybe they're really wanting to pinch their pennies and they're like, we got to get that all back. So this answers our first question. This is how much money we're losing to the 10%. So finally, he's just wanting to satisfy his accountants and say he's not worried about the 5%, right? 5% discount, that's nothing. So I want to prove them wrong, show me how much more money we are losing with the 10% discount. He's even so cocky as to say, I can't wait to prove them wrong. So let's see if he's right here. So let's go ahead and do another query. We're going to create query design. Once again, go to SQL. And then this challenge is actually going to be focusing a lot more on showing a subquery in the select statement. So if you recall from the hints of the challenge, you can actually use a subquery in the select statement as long as each subquery produces one result. So going back to this previous query, if we run it, see how this is showing as just one result, just as a number? What that means is we can actually use that in the select statement itself. So because we're going to find the magnitude of the differences here, let's go ahead and copy this whole query because we're going to want to use that. And then let's go ahead and start building out our solution query. So he's wanting to know the amount more lost by the 5% than the 10% here. So what we want to do is do some copy and pasting here. So if we were to do this, sorry, I should have put this in. Let me just do this here. So select group of parentheses. This is the amount that we're losing to the 10% minus the amount we're losing to the 5% discount. Let's call this total discount difference. So I like to do this just to kind of group things because when you start copying and pasting, it can get a little bit confusing. So I'm just kind of grouping how exactly I want to do this. And we know this is only going to come from the order detail table. We don't need to do any filtering in the where or in the having. We don't need to do any group bys because we're just selecting one thing. And so now we just need to copy and paste what we need in here. So we already have our query here for the 10%. So let's go ahead and copy and paste that in here. So again, it's going to look kind of crazy, but we just remember our structure here. And then we can paste it in this one as well. But this time we just want to change it, this where discount, from 0.1 to 0.05. So let's go ahead and run it, see what happens. So now look at all this. We've got tons of different options here. These all say the same thing. So he's only wanting one number here. So what's the easiest way to fix this? Adding a distinct here. And they can run it one more time. And now we can see there's a negative number. So what's this telling him? This is telling him that he's actually losing way more on the 5% discount than he thinks. So there's a $7,000 difference. So if we had 1,000 from the 10%, that means that the 5% is probably going to be significantly higher. If we wanted to just quickly test that, we can just change this one to 0.05, and we can just run it, and we can see he's losing 8,460 from the 5% discount. So anyway, now you've got a lot of good reports that you can give to the CFO, and yeah, great job, guys. Hope you had a lot of fun solving this challenge, learning a little bit more about subqueries, and that you could use this in the real world. Thank you, and enjoy.